I mean, we don't plan for children these days. Guys. It's almost these babies drop out of the sky. You know, the way we're out here making babies, it's mad. It's mad. So because of that, we are just reacting. We are just trying to catch these babies while they are already falling.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have them carrying a parachute of morals and values and list of things that we think they need in order to be, you know, progressive and, you know, play well with others in society.
But one thing I'm thinking which we as a society we are suffering from.
You've just stepped into an empty street, a podcast where we casually engage in difficult conversations about relationships, wealth, and health. We are just three curious gentlemen who ask questions almost about everything, and our aim is to find answers from others and within ourselves. We sit down every week to explore unaltered conversations. So let's walk the talk together, and welcome to the Empty Street Podcast.
In 3,
2, 1.
Rolling.
welcome to the Empty Street Podcast.
We're live,
Back, man, with another one.
Another week, another Tuesday, another day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, as we always say, we're not walking alone.
Yeah.
We come bearing gifts. We'd like the gift to introduce itself.
No, you guys are the gift to me. Thank you very much for the invite. So thank you guys for the invite. So the name is AshBidi on TikTok. The full name is AshBidi. That's my full name. So yeah, just a random regular guy in the streets that always enjoys having conversations if you ever wondered. So you know, that's what's up.
Dope stuff.
Oh, well.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Bet.
Yeah. So today's conversation, I just want us to unpack, say, a question that's been out there. Whenever men behave a certain way, you often hear a question that's posed by women saying, who raised these men?
Yeah.
So I just want us to answer that question a bit, but not focus on who raised these men per se, but be broad who raised these men and women.
So if you the way who raised, if they say who raised these men, and they say at the same time they call them men are trash, that means they are raising trash
now. That's messed
they're
up.
raising trash. Yeah, imnanjo. But yeah, Ntwana, uphendule question yakho so ukuthi compare the way our kids are raised now in a modern way even versus traditional way. Because back then you would understand ukuthi as a society or in a small community, they were more focusing on making sure that the child is being raised not only by the parents but even the neighbors. Young tall. Bakhona ukuthi bamnikeze to a point where bakhona ukuthi bamgaya ukudla, bakhona ukuthi bamnakekele, uyangithola. If namanje athi ubamba short left, bakhona ukumbuyisa endleleni. Even if it means ukuthi baphethe isambobo, uyangithola. Bakhona and bafika wena batshela ama parents akho bakwenzeni. Awufiki ukuthi then sebalwisa mina. Versus to what now is happening. Because manje mongayenza the same thing, manje uyaboshwa. You can't do that. You understand? It's no longer the same. So manje asa raising in the same way. So now it's more of the case of maintaining the kids instead of raising them. Because now we're more concerned with bashapu, bagcoke kahle, akubekho hurt, uyangithola. So it isn't the sibheka, asibhekanga izinto ukuthi abantwana are they learning something ezokhona ukuthi
they can apply
and
to everyday life.
And then teach them something ozowazi ukuthi as parents we know we don't have the full life ukuthi so phila forever, but giving them something we know ukuthi if now siyahamba noma yini, because now understanding now isikhathi esiphila kuso impilo seyiso ukhohlela nje khona uyangithola khohlela khona. So if now uzomosha isikhathi already that you are on being given, then you have a kid, then from there uzomosha isikhathi esinjengalesi, then udlala ngaso, then when only thing you just make sure ukuthi umntwana udlile, then ugqokile, then you think you're raising a kid when you're not doing the job. You understand? And it comes down to a point with why are you actually having the kid to begin with?
Yeah.
Young why are you having? Only if you have a plan as I was making example yokuthi Game of Thrones. Once a king wants a son, they know why they want a son. You understand? Even already saying the manual would mela teach you in.
Sure.
You understand? So now when we decide to have a kid, then then after that we just do what we have to do. You understand? We use our own experiences without even research. What's the best way? What's the purpose for the kid? Why ngimdinga? Yini engifuna ukuthi ayifulfill empilweni yami? Or yini engifuna ukuthi ngishiye kuye? Uyangithola, and akhona ukuthi aqhubeke naye. That will help the community. Because at the end of the day mawuzala awuzaleli wena kuphela. You're helping the community out. Uyangithola. So ngite about raising the kid that now we are saying with who's raising this man. Because now you buy a problem now with him. So the question is who's raising this man?
Yeah, and it's a problem because I think there's so many things that are involved, so many dynamics that are involved in raising a kid, you know.
True,
it's not only your perspective and experience as umntwana. And by the way, a lot of us tend to raise abantwana from our own personal experience because we made it to that age. So what we did worked for us and we wanted to work for our children.
Sure.
But we forget that times are changing.
True.
Njengoba usho ukuthi uyakhohlela manje, you can cough and then you're dead, you know. Those values that you would have instilled in your child are not there, you know, because society changes and then now you can die young or whatever the case, you know. So I think the people that will be mostly responsible for raising our children in society is going to be society itself. So that's social media, friends, neighbors, internet, whatever, anything else that exists outside of the household. I think we should have been doing a good job by making sure because even though we do much more learning outside of the household, we do the important learning from the household. So the stuff that you get taught by your parents in the household determine how you're going to carry yourself in society. Right? So I would imagine that when people are asking the question, who raises these kids, it's because we are already in society acting in a way that is, not conducive for them. So they feel offended. And if we are acting in a way that is not conducive or that offends them, it means from the household there's a problem. And the problem that is in the household is single parenting. Whether single father, single mother, that's the problem in the household. Another problem in the household is that we have kids without even thinking about it, So I mean, we don't plan for children these days. Guys, it's almost these babies drop out of the sky, the way we're out here making babies. It's mad. It's mad. So because of that, we are just reacting. We are just trying to catch these babies while they are already falling. We didn't have them carrying a parachute of morals and values and list of things that we think they need in order to be, progressive and, play well with others in society.
But one thing I'm thinking where as a society we are suffering from the roles, understanding our roles. A man has its own roles. A woman will never replace a man's role. A man will never replace a woman's role. In a society, in a child, but when you're raising a child, you never replace. If manje ngathi mina ngikhulisa umntwana bomfana, lo mntwana omfana uyayidinga iside yama. He needs that nurturing part. You understand? Ukuthi akhona ukuphila nabanye abantu. Then aphinda idinge leyo side yababa. Azokhona ukuthi yenze njani, akhona ukuphila nabanye abantu, akhona ukuthi enze izinto, akhona ukuyi-challenge kahle kahle, which is the side ubaba ilethayo, uyangithola, and akhona ukuthi afface ama-challenges, which is the side le ubaba ilethayo. Because if you check abomama, they are more focused on nurturing the kid. So into esingafuni ukuthi si-understand is our role. When as a woman, this is what you need to do. But now because we have this so-called saying independent women, they will tell you, I can do what a man can do. You understand? Which now I'm not saying with it is bullshit, with this not be gender based, but then at the end of the day, that's what happened.
It's a conversation that we can't escape from this thing of being gender. Okay, sharp. So the single parenting, the single mothering and single fathering, they all have their own. Actually, they all only just have drawbacks. I don't think there's a positive to being a single parent. They all have a drawback, right? So there's no positive out of that. So just to maybe take the conversation there to single parenting versus like nuclear family structure. I think we are asking the question of who raised these children. It's because a lot of us in society are products of single parenting.
Yeah,
I mean, were you raised in a nuclear family?
Yeah.
Yourself? Nuclear family?
Single parent.
Single parent.
parenting.
Single. Right. So you see 50% here. Single parent, nuclear family, because I'm from nuclear family. So it shows you that half of the society has a certain experience that they don't have, that me and you might have. So for example, being raised by a single mother, as you said earlier on, mothers tend to be more nurturing, right, and more loving.
Yeah.
So because of that, mothers tend to be very protective of their children.
children,
So it means in anything that their children are going through, the mother always wants to be there to walk the step with them, you know. If you look at classical movies, it's always the father that is teaching the kids how to ride a bike. Never the mom. So in a Ghanaian, what you see is that when the baby falls off the bike, the dad doesn't run and get up,
To the mother.
get on the bike and going. So it shows you, Uguti, when you take away the institute of having a father figure, that masculine type of love, because the masculine type of love is, listen, figure it out yourself. But that builds resilience in you. So single parenting creates a situation where children aren't resilient, children aren't stable enough to be confident in their own potential and strength as an individual. So thus we are very feeble and we are weak-minded. We don't have a strong identity because we didn't have fathers. And opposite, and something similar can happen also in a single fathering position. Because you are a tough love, you know, figure it out for yourself, be strong. You end up raising children that can't socialize properly with other kids. You can't play well with other kids because you don't know how to share, because you never learned that from your mom. You don't know how to be patient, you know, you don't know how to be intuitive and read the vibe. You're always logical, straightforward. It's a problem. So then you wonder why we end up with guys that are in relationships that are toxic to their girlfriends. It's because they were not raised by their mom, so they don't know how daddy treats mommy. They don't have that experience. So goodbye problem. Now we have gender-based violence, and then we ask the question again: who raised you to beat other women? You know what I'm told. So that's where the conversation goes. So it's because we are being raised outside of a nuclear household, and then we end up being raised by social media, by our friends and families and all of these things. And our friends and families, they have probably been raised by single parents as well. So it's an endless cycle of toxicity, and you understand?
Yeah. And another thing is that when it comes to raising children, is that we really don't have a plan on how we're gonna raise these children. People are just having children like no one's business out there, but no one sits down to say, okay, when I have a kid, these are my values that I want to instill in this child. This is the plan that I want to teach this child certain things in this certain way. We don't have those plans. And when you look at it, is that we don't even have a chance to sit down and have those plans, because for instance, in a place where there's a mother and a father raising the child, the mother goes to work, the father also goes to work. There's a nanny, someone we don't even know, who comes and raises the child. Give me a 7-year-old kid and I'll show you a man. The first 7 years of a child are the most important years of their development and growth. So when a kid between those years from 0 to 7 is exposed to a nanny that's gonna take the kid, put them in whatever chair they're gonna sit on in front of the TV to consume whatever the cartoons are playing there. And then while the nanny is busy out there, mommy and daddy is busy at work, and then they come from work, the nanny goes home, and then they get their chance to play with the kid. When do they get the time to actually
raise the kid,
instill what they want to instill? Because most of the time they are not there. The child grows up, reaches 7, they take them to school. Now the outside world has an impact into who this kid is gonna become. 3 years old, he already or she already has a cell phone, because that's a new cool thing now, to get your kid to shut up and not bother you.
Give him a tablet and then he'll keep quiet for a couple of hours. That's true.
Exactly. They consume whatever they consume, and whatever they consume there is gonna build them. It's gonna build who they become.
End up becoming.
And then you get to ask yourself, now who raised these people? The society did that, compared to back then when we were just being raised by a community. Now it goes back to something you once mentioned, we should also look at times. back then we had different reasons of why we should have kids. Right now we have different reasons of why we should have kids. Same applies with how we should raise those kids for those different needs in our society.
Yeah, but then iphinde ibuye lapho kulento leyo ukuthi we are not raising kids consciously so, because mawuthi check indlela bebakhulisa ngamntwana lokho as usho ukuthi now le society siphila kuyo now sidinga ukuthi we need the updated parenting, uyangithola, ekhona ukufita to what to the modern ways. Mawuthi uyabheka le, that's why ama parents wethu asafuna ukukhulisa umntwana in the same way abakhulisa thina ngayo, which now that's no longer fit, uyangithola, kule current society esiphila kuyo right now. So uyabona ukuthi we still using the one and the same thing, so we are not conscious on what is happening. But only if bo conscious bozothi mawuzoba nomntwana first child bozokhona ukuthi makwenzeka lo, then ukhona ukubona ukuthi okay mntwana ngimkhulise kanje, i mistake that I made is are these and these ones. Then from there you write down, right, all those mistakes you feel like I should fix these ones on the second child. Once you have a second child, then that's where you rectify them. Ukuthi you are rectifier la noma thi ukhona uzokulungisa, but you know ukuthi dayideng if ngilo angimqalanga sesemncane, but kulo uzayo mele ngimqala sesemncane ukuze azokwazi ukuthi la lento ngimkhuze lo sekamdala ngimkhuze lo angamkhuze masekamdala, uyangithola. So uyakhona ukubona ukuthi we are learning, we are conscious on what we are doing, we are conscious of our parenting, but we are not conscious of what we are doing. We just parent, we just have kids because we are able to have kids, because we are able to have a nice time.
Angithi sex mnandi bafo and i-condom asimthandi, so that's why we end up in this situation.
Becomes a problem. But another thing to add to this whole question of who raised these kids, right?
Sure.
We mentioned that there's not really a manual into how a kid should be raised, right? So what intends to happen is you're a newfound parent and you just got thrown into this life, into parenthood, right?
Yeah.
So now it's either you figure shit out on your own, or what other people tend to do is they go back home. You know, it's either or whoever is back at home that can at least then instill their values into how they raised you as this new parent. They then pass that their knowledge to their grandchild, basically. So that means the kid is now taking values from the grandparents, and which is what we were saying with it. Now some of those values are things that applied and were relevant in that day and age, you know. But now that times are moving and society doesn't really stay the same, you know, it adapts, but our teachings and how we raise kids doesn't adapt with it. Or maybe it does, because what people do is now instead of raising their kids, we shove them with these devices, you know. So it is advancing, but in the manner it's doing it, it's not in the benefit of the kid. You know, it's more of like trying to lessen the effort it takes for the parent to raise the kid, because it's no easy job, you know, from the early mornings to just instilling values and just raising the kid. Feeding and putting them to bed can't be the only two things you do to raise your kid. You know, there's other things in between that they're gonna have to, like laying the foundation. Because once that foundation is there, they're still gonna go outside. And every other day they're gonna spend outside. And what they take outside will actually be what they live with for the rest of their lives. So if you haven't really laid a solid foundation, everything else is just gonna cave in. You know, and the minute it starts caving in, then you find kids that are confused when they come, when they go into society, because now they don't know what to take and what to leave out. You know, they just take in everything and accept it as is, when it's not even the case. When there's just things like the kids don't understand that there's information everywhere, right? But there's certain information that is not for you. You know, it's really not for you. It might be there, but it's not for you to consume. Maybe you might listen to it just to gain a different perspective. There's nothing wrong with that. Gain the perspective. However, based on how your values and beliefs, you will know what to take and what not to take from that information. You know, I think it's things like that.
I think he's speaking more on the relevancy of the information specific to you as the child in that specific society. And I like what you brought there as well, because he made mention of the old versus the new. So you do know that there's sort of a battle between mothers of today and mothers of back then. You know, and you mentioned something good because we are speaking about giving your child a good foundation such that when they go out in the society, they've got a strong basis of who they are and how to act. And you can only really get them that from the household because that's where charity starts. It begins at home. But also now, who is home? Is it a single mother? Is it a single father? Right? So I just want to maybe put this into the conversation because you mentioned the old and the new. So in African tradition, we know that back then, majority of the times, umama bekayenza ingane akhulise the end there, but the person that was really responsible for raising this child, and which I believe, that's the best thing that we could do, because when you said that we are raising children from our past experiences, right? Because I've lived a safe life, or I've done this in my life, it has led me to having a job, a house, and a marriage, or whatever the case. So you're obviously going to try to teach that formula to your child, right? But I think, because as a person, I mean, we all have kids at the age of 20, some even like teenagers. We are already having kids at a 12-year-old that is pregnant and stuff like that, right? So it means we are having kids when we are very young ourselves. We haven't even figured out our own identity. How the hell are we going to pass on something that is fundamental for a child to actually survive in this ever-changing society? So this is where I feel like the importance of abokoko comes in. Because abokoko, they are not wrapped up around the stuff that we are consumed with. They are not consumed with fashion. They are not consumed with having some drinks and chilling with friends. They are not consumed by social media. So it means they spend most of their, especially mabagwi pension, right? They spend most of their times thinking about life and reflecting on the life that they have lived. So they are the people that are in a better position to actually instill knowledge, morals and values that will actually help this child to grow up in this ever-changing society. Whereas with us, something that I can instill into my child when I'm a 20-year-old parent, I can tell my child to live a certain way, right? And then when I'm 25, I realize, no, man. And like, no, later I didn't because I only realized and learned a lesson about life when I was 25. And this happens all the way until you're in your 50s. I mean, that's the reason why people suffer from something that we call midlife crisis. It means at the age of 40, 45, you still haven't figured out your way through life. So how the hell are you going to install some knowledge and principles into Ingani that are actually going to survive this kid? So it means that Tina, as adults, it means that even a 40-year-old that is going through a midlife crisis is still too young to raise umtwana and instill certain values that are necessary for umtwana to be solid-minded. Right now, depression rates are high, especially in men. Relationships are horrible. That affects both parties. And it's because we are raised by abazali uguti they were incomplete in their knowledge. So ever since because now we're going to go into westernization, ever since we were colonized as African people, we are expected to and I don't think that's how it should be. The people that should be responsible for raising ingani, it's the old people. They've got more time on their hands to critically think about stuff. So the only reason why it's your responsibility is because we attach it to this thing you can only drink when you're 21 or when you're 18, then you're an adult, which is a false narrative. Because if you're 40 years old, you're still suffering from midlife crisis, you are still a child, you haven't figured yourself out, you're still not stable. I'm not saying that you're an idiot, I'm not saying that you're stupid, but there's still certain things that are balanced. So that's why we end up with the situation, because Tina, young people, we are raising young children ourselves, and we don't have a defined identity in ourselves, because society itself is not even defined. It's always changing.
It's ever changing.
But the best shot at raising a child, I believe, the old method is always the best. Corporal punishment. I know they're not gonna like this, but I believe guys, because they know how to do these things properly.
Put you in line.
With the modern parenting styles, what you do is, if ever they misbehave, you put them in the corner. I don't know what they call it, but a kid just stays in the corner.
Naughty corner.
The naughty corner.
What's the naughty corner?
What's that?
Honestly, this naughty corner thing, and I think it may work. There's actually research that was put out that says beating a child is not actually necessary, right? And even though it's research is still questionable. Because the methodology that was carried out, right, determines the end result. So if you're running a randomized clinical trial, right, which is a multi-cohort study, your results that you get from that are more likely to be conclusive for the general population. But if you're running a single blinded, non-randomized study,
It's inconclusive.
your results are going to be biased to a certain outcome. So I think Uguti, this naughty corner thing doesn't necessarily work for the majority, especially for African people. Let me speak for the context of African people, right? Because what I notice is that punishment yokuthi ushaye umntwana utopi fatu kumshange fatu ko slippers, because mina uko mama mbekangishaya ngekwekwaye nje khule ngishawa ngekwekwaye mina, like no life, like anything that is in the vicinity is a
anything
weapon
within reach.
Exactly.
If she's cooking, definitely get in that pit.
So anything was like turned into a weapon. And the reason is we are trying to shorten the distance between the cause and effect. So as umntwana, when you're doing something wrong, right, you don't realize that what you're doing is wrong because you don't understand the consequence of that. You don't understand the effect. The effect of what you do sometimes happens 10 days later, 3 days later. Umntwana mangachitha ishukela manje phansi, the consequences you're gonna feel them later on at 8 o'clock when you want to make a cup of tea. Then you realize what is that? So the reason why we reprimand abantwana right now is to shorten the distance between the cause and effect, so that they can feel the immediate repercussion of their own actions. But when we don't hit umntwana, to go to the naughty corner, they still don't get that experience of the punishment, because the effect comes, it's delayed, it comes later on in life, you know. So that's why punishment, and African parents did a good job instilling these things.
If you like, as you say, like if you've done something wrong, you should know about it now. Because putting me in a naughty corner doesn't really, it's like I'm just taking a break from doing what I was doing earlier. You know, okay, I'm gonna sit there, I'm not really gonna think about what I did. You know, I'm just thinking about why do I have to sit here? I could be playing outside, or I could be doing something else instead of just sitting here.
You're contemplating, you're sitting there in the corner contemplating on what to eat for supper.
Not
how can
what
I annoy my mother next time?
But guaranteed, after Indu,
you focus on the page, dog.
I think the idea in Notikona was taken from a prison, isolation, like correctional services. Just isolation, understanding that human beings, one of their primary needs is
time alone,
having companionship, like being around, fitting in a certain society.
So when you take them out,
punish them and you take them to prison when they misbehave in
solitary confinement.
So you're like, okay, the punishment is like you're gonna be alone, like punishing them internally just like that. But do they correct their behaviors though?
They don't, because number one, if you think about a kid, a child is never alone. Imaginary friends, your mind runs wild. So you can like the idea of putting a child in isolation, I don't think it works. Because
that's ammunition.
Their mind is their friend. It entertains them all the time. So
at some point it's needed just for the kid to be alone and think. I mean, that's what meditation is.
Imagination.
But I think to answer the question, like straight up, Jay, we've seen that most people in our society were raised by single parents. So who raised us? It's women. We were raised by women, and
based on statistics.
Based on statistics, and of course there's exceptions where there's people who were raised by single fathers or who came from nuclear families. But the stats say that the majority of people were raised by single mothers. And what I've noticed is that, for instance, as a small kid, what you do is you remodel your identity based off what you see and what you are exposed to at a very young age. So what happens is if ever you are, I think you mentioned this, if ever you are a guy, in this case that they say who raised these men, in case that you're a guy who was raised by a single mother, what you do is you remodel your own identity based off the mother. There's something Penwell's brother, I don't know if you know him, he mentioned about so he makes this example that women are eagles and men are fish. So that what he uses to separate femininity and masculinity. So an eagle knows how to fly, and that's what it does best. A fish knows how to swim. So if the eagle teaches the fish how to swim, it can teach it based off their own experience, but it will teach it according to what it thinks is the best for that fish. Based off what we are talking about now. Yeah, women have done a great job raising men, but we have these problems that we have
as men,
and still they ask who raised these men. It's women. And then they won't want to take accountability or
That's the problem.
progress the conversation. What they'll say is, yeah, Ngiti, men left, these men are trash, they left. But now it's
the blame is now on the absent fathers.
And it's not about the blame, it's about the reality of what's happening. You guys are raising men who are behaving and acting in these certain ways, who
Men
are
who are
abusive,
trash.
who
Let's
can't
address
handle their
that.
emotions,
Men who are
not
trash.
resilient, who are weak-minded. So how do we make it work?
You know, now you went on to another topic, and I think we're going to be a little bit.
No, we can come back to.
You sure?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
come back. Maybe if it's another topic, we can
No.
focus on it
Alright.
some other time.
Okay. Where are these absent fathers? Because even though women are responsible for raising us in the society,
We're the gents.
where did we go?
Like, I think, based on what I've noticed, is that normally, especially back in the day, is that, for instance, Gauteng was known as the central point for people to come and seek for work, employment, right? However, the primary residential spaces was not Gauteng. It was outside of Gauteng, in Makai and all of that. And what would happen most of the cases is that these are men that leave their homes where they've built families. You know, they have a wife and kids there. And then they come to Gauteng to seek employment, to better their lives back at home, right? However, when they reach here, yes, maybe the first few months, it's span. And so, after span, you know, now it's a thing with, okay, now you being social with the people around you.
Yeah.
From socializing, you find a companion. That companion, you form an acquaintance with that person. From that, it's friends turn into a relationship. You know, now you with this person, however, you committed to someone, you know, so now you end up being tied in to multiple relationships. However, you can't stick to all of them. So it's not like, yo, I can come now, but I can't stick around forever, you know? And then it's a thing where you are now a product of being raised by your mom or your father alone, because the other party was not there. You know, where the roles of that father were never present because they were never around. You know, every time they were needed, they had to go fend for the family back at home or the other family that they found here. You know, there's cases where a father can impregnate like 6-7 women. So those are 7 different families. So, you know, you can't split yourself into 7
People, yeah, true.
young thought. So definitely, some way, somehow, you as a father figure is gonna fall short. You know, you can't reach in all directions as much as you'd like to, but in most cases it's not the case. It's not the case. So I guess where they end up going, because the question was, where are the absent fathers? And they just go back to the Lokala or whatever the case is, Mara. They never stick around because of those kind of situations. These days, I don't know.
Yeah.
My lifestyle and all of that, it's just fun times. So it's like, nah, like I just live my jizz and then go to the next time. And then this one's not only want to tell you that I am pregnant because it wasn't even a relationship from the first place. So this person now keeps that kid to themselves. Which, you know what, there's no point telling that person because he's not going to even stick around. So I might as well do what? Raise the kid as my own. So there's also that perspective. The women themselves choose not to actually involve the father. Yeah, well.
I think le topic le there's a lot. I think it's a the way more khuluma khona mangilalela lento the way isho ngakhona kuningi singakusho ngithola kuningi singakusho but since beshilo ukuthi let's just focus on this one,
that one,
yeah, then finish it, then so that khona ukuthi sicede then le so ibuyela sikhulume nje iyodwa
part 2
yeah so then we give it
because there's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot
to unpack.
Yeah, so I guess we can have even final words about
Who raised
who raised these men. Yeah,
Who raised these men and women?
Yeah, from my side on this issue of who raised men, I think both genders really need to take responsibility and accountability for this.
Yeah,
true.
If women raised us because we are absent fathers, we take accountability for that.
Yeah.
And then women must take accountability for raising us in a very toxic manner as well.
Sure.
Because they still don't allow us to voice our opinions.
Yes.
They still make us feel marginalized, you know, but it's not a blame game. We are all responsible to some degree for all of this pain and torture and trauma that we have created or inflicted on each other. But yeah, just to say who raised us, majority, I think more than 50% of the raising is done outside of the household, which will be our friends, families, which are also maybe coming from other single parenting household. And then the other thing will be social media and the internet as well. So those are the things that I feel like are raising us as children or raising our children
in this day and age.
In this day and age.
Yeah, I think even on my last word, I would agree with you there. Because now impact a buyer in a childhood yomntwana social media. That's the wide access abanayo. Abantwana bamanje, the only thing that they can do ukuthi angene room avala umnyango. Yinto ayenzayo lapha phakathi.
They're on their phones.
The only thing they can do, they browse pen. They browse through social media, bangene kuma browser, they search anything on food. Then that's where they get brainwashed. That's they get programmed. That's where
I think that's another thing. Sorry to cut you short, but I think that's another reason why there's so many introverts in this generation as well, because they're so enclosed. Like there's no human interaction. You know, human interaction has just been taken away slowly. You know, I mean, this whole COVID thing actually speeded up that process already. You know, true. But I feel like that whole thing with shoving your kid with a device and just letting the phone do all the raising, it creates like introverted kids. You know, because all they want to do is just sit in their rooms, as you said, and just be on their phones, Google whatever. How do you do this? How do you do that? So you're raised by how-tos basically. You know, it's dog.
We care how.
Yeah, it's part of showing love. Giving the child the device, part of showing love.
What's important is that when we ask the question, who raised us, who raised these men, or who raised these women, something we should learn from that is that as much as we can ask that question and seek answers for that question, we should be responsible ourselves about procreation. Having kids, we should make conscious decisions when having kids. For instance, abantu bazokutshela ukuthi you'll never be ready to have a kid, so you might as well just
jump into it.
And it's not that difficult. The early the better. What you were saying, there's a midlife crisis. People who haven't figured shit out by 30, 40, and
they still
those
kids.
people maybe had kids in their teens. How's that benefiting them and the society? Because as I said, maybe the reasons back then, or one of the reasons back then to have kids is to grow communities. But now we have these established communities. What's the reason to have a kid? And it goes back to what I was saying, I think it was off cam or here, I'm not sure. You should look at your own self before you have a kid. Do my genes deserve to survive? And you base that off the impact that you have in the society, so that you can continue that impact and teach someone else, or someone else inherits what you have, so that they can continue to have that positive impact in our society. So we should challenge ourselves when it comes to having kids and making those decisions. And if we already have kids, we should be involved. Like we have to
In their
be
upbringing.
conscious parents to be active. What does my kid learn from me, and what am I teaching them? What values am I instilling them? What type of impact do I want my kids to have in the society?
Be conscious.
So yeah,
Be
those are
conscious,
my
that's
last
right.
words.
Yeah.
Dope conversation, gents.
Yeah, I know,
Dope
gents.
conversation.
No, it was a good one, gents. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, and thanks
It was a
a
pleasure
lot
having you.
for coming.
No pause.
No, much appreciated.
Giving
Yeah,
us
no.
a beta.
Definitely
course.
have you for
Part two.
Away.
We need a part two.
Definitely
We need a
going to
part
have
two.
part
But
two.
if you like the conversation, hit the like button right there. And if you'd like to see part 2 as well, it's your chance to hit the subscribe button and click that bell icon so that you're notified when part 2 drops. But as you always say,
Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take care of your pockets. This is the Industry Podcast, and we're signing out.
Signing out indeed.